Christ said, don't go do anything until you get it, and then we don't use it. And we don't pray in the Spirit enough, and yet it says we're built up in our spirit if we pray in the Spirit, and it's, it's a time where we speak to the Lord in mysteries and different things. So I would encourage you, if you're not baptized in the Holy Spirit, with that evidence, then go to pastor. There's a clear process in the Bible where we're infilled with the Spirit when we get born again, but then there's another work of the Spirit where we have the power to do what God has called us to do. And right now, the church is somewhat anemic in that they don't have that power. So we need more effort, right? Or effervescence in the church. Yeah. So anyhow, I met some wonderful people. Praise God for that. I'm going to speak on today. I'm going to speak about hearing the voice of God in your life. And I have a book. It's not, I didn't write it. It's some of the God pastor wrote it, and it's called Journey of Discovery: Knowing the Voice of God. Those are available to you. Typically, we don't market the ministry or anything like that. But this is a good friend of mine. He's from Kansas, McPherson, Kansas, and he's an author. And he's written this book. It's a real simple approach on how you know when it's God's voice and not just some other voices speaking to your head. So we sell them. I hate to use that word, but for an offering of $10, and that money doesn't go to us or our ministry at all. It goes to his ministry. He has a home, actually several homes in McPherson, Kansas, for the recovery of young men that have been in drugs and crime and that sort of thing. Kind of takes them out of the big city environment and puts them in a home where they learn how to live life and get born again and get a job and make payments and all that kind of stuff. It teaches them how to do that. So that the money from the books go directly to that ministry. So they'll be available for you if you're interested in that. But enough of that. Now just a little background about me, as Pastor had promised. It's interesting, I'm in California because I got this message from the Lord in California. I was raised Catholic. I don't know if you've heard that religion in this part of the country. I was raised Catholic and went to Catholic school. Met a Catholic girl who went to Catholic school. We both got married in Catholic church and quit going to Catholic church right after that. And didn't go to church for years. And then one day I came home and I was working on the disc manufacturer. We were working 24/7. We were trying to beat IBM, which we did. And to put a disc in their computer is what it was. And so I came home one day and she said, "I'm a Christian." And I said, "Well, we've always been Christians. Aren't we always Christians? Where there's Christians, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, we're all Christians, And she said, "No, it's different now." And I watched her life over the next couple months, and I saw a real change in her attitude about things. She was always a good wife. We got married at 18. We've been married for 49, almost 50 years now. And she was always a real good wife, but suddenly she just had this joy, this peace about her that I really envied her. And it was funny. She'd start playing Christian music. B.J. Thomas was famous, with the raindrops falling on your head. When he got born again, he started singing Christian songs, and I didn't care for him. I liked Led Zeppelin, So and so we told her she could listen to her Christian songs, me and the kids, if she'd wear her earbuds. Well, in those days, earbuds were about, this great big black things with the chrome thing, and the cord that plugged in, she had to be within about 10 feet of the stereo. But she was very good, and she did that. She enjoyed that, and you could just see the peace and joy she had when she sat there listening to it. And so I asked her how to get it, and she explained to me how to get born again. I got born again. We began attending a non-spirit-filled church, and just a fundamental evangelical church. And really enjoyed that, but then we ran into these people that told us that there was more, that there was an opportunity to speak mysteries between you and God. There was an opportunity to have power in your life that we didn't have. And we had that personal relationship, but we didn't have the power. And so the people there tried to talk us out of it. They told us, "Oh, that's not from God, that's not for today, that's all past it." But we saw a difference in these other people, and so we pursued it. And so about a year later, we were filled with the Holy Spirit, began attending the Assembly of God Church, where we served in various roles of lay leadership for 17 years. time I was, after we sold the disc company, I went to work for Campbell Soup, and they really didn't know what to do with me, but I just kept rising up in the company for some reason. I ended up working for the vice president and traveled the United States as National Operations Training Manager. Me and another Christian fellow, as I was telling the pastor, created a training system that went viral. In those days, you didn't call it viral, but that's what happened. And we got to have the opportunity to teach it to Lloyd's of London, to Dow Corning, to when the Valdez sank, we taught the Exxon people how to do it. And it was all based on the Bible, but nobody knew that, but me and this guy that knew that, and it's been published and everything else, but it was based on the principles of the Bible, and it changes companies completely around. And so anyhow, we did that for a while, and I was doing that, I had to travel to the United States, and Campbell's, I don't know if you know, owned a bunch of different food companies then, not just the red and white cans, but we owned companies like Swanson Frozen Foods, we owned companies like Pace, Prego, Chef Boyardee, Pepperidge Farms, and the list just Mrs. Paul's Fish, the Vlasic Pickles. So I was traveling all over the oval. There's one that I don't want to sound chauvinistic, but there's one that always the ladies say, ooh, Godiva Chocolates was another one. Yeah, so I got to travel to all these facilities. We had about 50,000 employees, and I began to see myself as a minister to these people. Because see, we don't need to be in a full-time ministry to be a minister of God's word to people. Sometimes we depend on the pastor to do all that, but really, every one of us are called into the army of God, and every one of us are put in a position, maybe not a full-time ministry position, but we're called to minister where we've been put. And so I began to be bold about it. I figured if I could trust God, He put me there. If I could trust God to put me there, then I could trust God if I began to share my faith with everybody. And I just began to do that. And nobody would ever say anything because I was this mysterious guy that came from headquarters, and nobody wanted to get in trouble. So, I could preach to people, I shared the gospel. I tried to do it, off company time, lunches and breaks. And then I began preaching at churches around the country. I got my credentials. You talk about Heather getting her credentials. I got my credentials and began to preach around the United States on Wednesday nights because I was gone traveling 5 days a week. And I was always gone on Wednesday nights. And so I just started preaching at churches on Wednesday nights around the country. And I'd invite the people from the factories to come hear this crazy executive preaching on Wednesday nights. They'd come, they'd get born again, the churches would fill up, and it was just a good time. I was really enjoying it. But I felt in my heart there was something more that God was calling me to, and I really didn't know what it was exactly. So I was just really praying. I don't know how you really pray, but I mean, you're either praying or you're not praying. But I was really seeking God. What do you want me to do? And I had a great life. Incredible salary, traveled the country, traveled the world, really. And we had plants in South America, we had plants in Europe, and all over, and factories. Sometimes people, when I say plants, they don't know, they think it's some green thing, but factories, but we had factories all over the world. And so I was just sharing with all these people, but I felt in my heart there was something more God was calling me to. And I mean, how envious can you be? I had a full-time ministry. I mean, when I go to these cities, people would be waiting for me to go and pray for their family in the hospital. I've done their funerals, I've done their family's funerals, everything else, all over the United States. And I was loving it, but I felt like there was something else. And I would encourage you, seek God, really seek God for His call in your life. It doesn't matter how young you are, how old you are, but seek God because you want your life to fulfill the purpose that God has planned for you. And oftentimes we just go through mundane life and just, try and live the quote-unquote American dream, and we don't really realize God has a plan for our lives, but we're kind of sometimes afraid to step out. So I just began preaching all over the country and witnessing, and I was bold about it, starting Bible studies with these people. But I was really seeking the Lord, and I was in a place called, and I don't know if you'll recognize the name of any of these places, but I was in a place called Artesia, California. I don't know if you've ever heard of Artesia, California. And that's, I was there, and we had a big soup plant in Sacramento. It's closed now, but we had a soup plant in Sacramento, and we had a frozen food plant, Swanson Frozen Food Plant in Modesto. And I decided to rent a car and drive down to visit my son. I was only there for a few days, and I was going to have dinner with my son. I'm very blessed with all my children. We got 2 boys and a girl, and one of our grandsons of our daughter is back here videoing right now. But this will be on the internet in a few weeks if you want to watch it again. We'll be careful to turn it off when people come to the altar. We don't want to embarrass anybody or anything like that. But we do have it available if you want to see it again, or you have somebody who wasn't here today that would want to see it. So, I was so blessed by the children and their presentation, because today in our church, since we're not there, our associate pastor is having, my wife runs the children's group just pretty much like Heather, and they're doing a big presentation in front of the whole church today, so my associate pastor doesn't have to preach as long as I do. But yeah, they're back doing that today, and it's just, I wish my wife was with me. She would love to see that presentation that your kids did. So, but I was in the desk when I decided to drive down and have dinner with my son. He's my second son, and he lives out here now. And he was going to UCLA at the time, working for JPL. Have you heard of JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories? And at 18, God just blessed him incredibly. At 18, he was helping design the mission of Cassini to Saturn. And he still calls me today. It's there now, on his travel. He said, "Oh, Dad, that's what I told him to do." At 18. At 19, he was a supervisor at JPL and was part of landing the first successful rover on Mars, the Pathfinder and Sojourner. So it's, you can be proud of that. They actually paid him to go to Stanford. When he graduated from UCLA, they paid him to go to Stanford, paid him a salary to go to Stanford, paid all his tuition. God blesses you. God blesses you. Because see, when we got saved, we were tithing. We weren't tithing because we didn't know anything about tithing, and people told us to tithe, and I was taking that money that 10% of my money was going to put away for their education, for my kids' education. And it was a huge thing for me, and I don't suggest everybody do this unless God guides you to do this. It was a huge thing for me to take that 10% instead of putting it away for education. I put it into the church. And then God blessed us because my son, the rocket scientist, he got a $150,000 education and it cost me $15,000. Isn't that amazing how God is? And he came out of no student loan, but $12,000 in the bank because they paid him $1,000 a month to go to Stanford. So, we've seen these kind of things. We've seen God just take care of it. So we're just boldly trusted. I just boldly trusted. And you can say, well, that's easy for you. No, it wasn't. But you just have to boldly trust God that what He's called you to do, you go do it. People died in the first century. They died for doing what God, and none of us have to do that. We just maybe get embarrassed or get a little rejection at work or from our family, and we take that, oh, I can do that. But these people are giving their lives for the work of Jesus Christ. And America's just got to wake up. We got to wake up. Jesus said, I thought it was funny, Pastor. When that song was, as well with my soul, the Lord was telling, I was talking to the Lord, I said, should I tell the people about where that song came from? Or is this just for me? Because I knew where the song came from, and I was thinking, do I tell them that it was when they were ringing the bells that He wrote as well with my soul? They're ringing the bells for His family that drowned in the ocean, and He was going later and all that. And I said, maybe I'm not supposed to tell it. And He said, no, you don't need to tell it. I'll take care of it. And then you come up here and you tell us. It's fun to know the voice of God. It's fun to hear from Him. It really is. And it takes time. It takes training in the Scriptures. But you begin to know when He's talking to you. And so I was driving down to Modesto to have dinner with my son. And on my way there, through several experiences, the Lord took me out of the car. What happened is there was a radio program on, and they were interviewing a guy from Back to the Bible. And I got about halfway. I prayed the first halfway. You ever tried to pray for 5 hours? It's a 5-hour drive from Modesto to Pasadena, where he was living at the time. And as I was going, I just, kind of worn out. And I thought, well, in Fresno, there must be a Christian radio station. So I switched on the radio, and I found a Christian radio station, but it wasn't music. They were interviewing Dr. Kroll from Back to the Bible, and they were talking about what had changed in the church in America in the 40 years that Back to the Bible had been in the ministry. And they came to 2 conclusions. One, people used to come to the Lord and they'd say, Jesus, what can I do for you? But now the tendency is when people get saved, they say, what can your church do for us? And the other thing is people used to be bereaved. They used to read the scriptures because it's in the scriptures that you get your daily guidance from God. And what's happened is a lot of us are watching TV evangelists or reading self-help books from the Christian bookstore, and that's all fine, but he can speak to you. He's not a respecter of persons. He wants to speak to you through his word. I mean, sometimes if it's radical, you might go to a pastor and say, is this real? But anyhow, he wants to speak to you through his word. And I don't know how much time I have, Pastor. He was worried that some of you might leave before I'm done, but I was going to ask Ephraim, would you give me an extra 20 minutes? Is that all right? Is that okay? Where's John? John, will you give me an extra 20 minutes? Okay. Robert, would you give me an extra 20 minutes? Praise God, we have an extra hour already. But anyhow. I was traveling, and the other thing, people aren't reading, they aren't studying the Word. And if you don't study the Word, you don't get that individual revelation that God has for you for that particular day. Jesus said, I only do what I see the Father in heaven do. And every day he'd spend many hours in the evening searching, the Lord's guidance in his life. Because see, he could heal thousands and thousands of people, but there were certain things he had to do. The man at the well, the lady that came up under the crowd. I mean, there's certain things that had to go in here because otherwise the book would be too big. And there's so many things in here, but he had specific directions from the Father. And we need specific direction from the Father. Not my will, but thy will be done. But if we don't know his will, what do we do? And so I was driving along, and I just began to weep because being raised Catholic, we didn't have Bibles in our house. And here people have the scriptures and they're not reading them. And as I was weeping, something strange happened. And I say strange because, like Pastor said, my degree's in engineering from the University of Nebraska. My postgraduate is University of Tennessee in statistics. So I'm a pretty pragmatic person, if you want to think of it that way. Pretty much lived my life by numbers and facts. And something strange happened to me while I was driving along the highway there. And a hand came out of the air with a clenched fist. It was from about here on down, and it came flying through the air. At first I thought it was like a piece of rubber off of a semi-truck tire or something. And I actually kind of started to duck. Then I realized it was a hand with a fist. I thought, oh man, there's been some terrible accident. And but it kept coming, and the windshield didn't break, and it came in my chest, and the fist opened up and vanished. And I looked down, and there was a seed in my heart, where my heart was. There was a seed glowing there. And I said, what in the world is this, Lord? What just happened to me? And instantly he took me out of the car, and I was standing in the back of a church, and I was standing back there, and the person who was preaching was speaking about intimacy with God. That much like the church at Ephesus in Revelations, we were doing all this stuff, but we were neglecting our first love. And we were missing that intimate personal time with the Lord. And the people came streaming forward, and as they came streaming forward, a song was playing, I pledge allegiance to the Lamb. And then suddenly I was back in the car. What I hadn't realized is that I traveled through time in about 35 minutes. I've been out of the car. And I knew that because I went out of the car someplace between Fresno and Bakersfield, and I'd gone through the grapevine. Does anybody know what the grapevine is? I went through the grapevine, and I said, Lord, how did I just go through the grapevine? And I knew where I was because I could see the Viper. You know what the Viper is? Everybody know what the Viper is? The big roller coaster at Six Flags Mountain Magic Mountain. And I saw the Viper. I said, my gosh, Lord, I just drove 35 minutes, 40 minutes without being in the car. And I said, what in the world just happened to me? And a voice came to me, and the voice said, America is changing. America is changing, and my people need to know my word, they need to know my voice, and they need to know my will for their lives. And I said, well, what do I do about it? Feeling kind of funny talking to this voice to begin with. And I said, well, what do I do about it? The voice came back, and it says, go tell my people, 50 states, 2 by air, the rest by land. Well, that made sense to me as an engineer. You're not going to drive to Alaska or Hawaii, so 50 states, 2 by air, the rest by land. And so that's what we've been doing since then. But I got to my son's later that evening, and I thought, well, I'm going to tell him he's a rocket scientist. He was going to Jack Hayford's church at the time, and the Foursquare aren't quite as spiritual assembly God people. So I thought he'd just kind of laugh at me, and say, Dad, you're sitting way too close to the front. You move back into orange. And I got there, and we were at this little Chinese restaurant in South Pasadena, and I told him the story. He looks at me real stoic across the table, very seriously, and he says, Dad, I think God wants you to do that. Well, that scared me, because now I'm getting butterflies. What am I supposed to do, leave my cushy job? And, I have already got a ministry, in a sense. And I said, does he really want me to do this? So I called my wife, all excited. I called my wife up. It's 10:30 there. It's 12:30 in Nebraska. I call her up and I say, look what God's done. I'm all excited. And even our son, he said, yes, it looks like something God wants you to do. And I'm telling her all through this thing. And I told her just what I told you, although in more detail. And she said, well, that sounds silly. Don't tell anybody. It sounds crazy. Don't tell anybody. And I said, really? What sounds crazy? And she picked my favorite part. The 50 states, 2 by air, the rest by land. She said, that sounds like the call of Paul Revere, to it by, it's just like, and so we decided we'd pray about it. You know how that works, Robert, right? You talk to your wife about it and we just say, pray. But anyhow, we prayed about it and we just got confirmation after confirmation. The first confirmation came the next morning. I had dinner with my son, stayed with him in South Pasadena, and then drove back the next morning. I left at 3 in the morning because I wanted to be back at 8 for a meeting, and it's a 5-hour drive. And I was driving, and at 5:30 I glanced down at I was really praying, God, I want another out-of-car experience. You heard out-of-body experiences, I want another out-of-car experience. But I didn't get it, but I was driving along, and I looked down at the dash of the clock, on the dash, and it said 5:30. I thought, well, I prayed and prayed, now I'm going to turn on, I'm halfway again, I'm going to turn on the radio, the Christian radio station in Fresno, I probably can get it. But I thought I'm going to get the news, right, at 5:30, you're going to get the weather, even though it never changes in California, although it did rain today. But, I thought, well, I'll listen to the news and see what's going on. And I turned on the radio, and instead of the news coming on, it was that song, I Pledge Allegiance to the Land, and it played from beginning to end. And I just began to weep. I said, I think God wants me to do this. And so we went ahead and we just got confirmation after confirmation over the next couple of years as we prepared ourselves to go and do this. And really not even knowing what this was at the time. And the message I'm going to speak about in a minute is from 2 Kings chapter 2. And what it does is it takes us on a journey with Elijah and Elisha from Gilgal to Bethel, from Bethel to Jericho, across the Jordan River. And the question is where did we stop? But when he crossed the Jordan River, Elijah came and he said, what is it you want to Elisha? He said, what is it you want? He says, I need a double portion of what you got. And for several years we prayed and we didn't tell anybody about this at all. We didn't tell anybody about it at all. Except for my pastor. That's always wise to tell your pastor. He can tell you if you're nuts or not. But, well, unless he's nuts. But anyhow, we told him, so nobody knew but my wife, my son in California, not even our other kids, and my pastor. And we spent the next several years just getting confirmation after confirmation. And one day, it was a Monday night, I was praying with a friend of mine, and the Lord spoke to me, because I had gotten to the point where I really understood and knew when he was speaking to me, and the Lord spoke to me. He says, tell Gar, that was the guy I prayed with, tell Gar, and I said, well, we had agreed, Lord, my wife and I, not to tell anybody until we knew that we were supposed to do this. But the Lord just insisted I tell Gar. So I told Gar about it, and he just looked at me, he says, what more do you need? And I said, I need one more thing. I need one more confirmation. I said, I need the anointing that was on M.F. Brandt. He'd come from Northern California, sold his business and planted churches in Nebraska. And that's how the Assembly of God churches really got started in Nebraska. But I would sit with him and he would mentor me, and I would listen to the stories that he would tell me. And I said, I need his anointing. If I'm going to go to the United States, and he came from California to Nebraska, I got this message in California from the Lord, and I'm supposed to go to the whole 50 states, then I need double the anointing that he had. And so Gar began to pray for that anointing, and see, MF had told me about the great times when God really moved in the church, Pastor. He told me how they came from California to Nebraska, and they were living in a little tiny one-room parsonage, and all that was there to heat it was a potbelly stove, an iron stove that you put coal in. And he was out of coal, and he was praying to God. He said, "You sent me to this place. It's like freezing cold outside in Nebraska. You sent me to this place." He says, "Surely not to let me and my family freeze in the middle of the night." And he said, "Lord, you got to do something. Either warm the room up or send somebody with coal." He had no money to buy coal or anything. And he's there, and suddenly he hears a knock on the door. That's sound effects for the younger people, because they told me that sound effects. So yeah, that's as good as it gets, though. But anyway, somebody comes to the door, and he goes to the door, and it's about, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And here stands a leader of the community. He's got on a long black wool coat and a hat, and underneath it you can see a nightgown. Men used to wear those, red and white striped things. And he said he could tell the guy hurriedly come over there, and he had a burlap bag. And he took the burlap bag. Now, this guy didn't go to his church, never went to his church. He was a leader in the community. And he says, "Here, I can't sleep till I give you this." And he shoved it into MF's chest and turned on the left. And MF took that bag, and he went back into the little room that they had there. And he opened up the bag. You know what was in the bag? Coal. God had sent him. Go see. And I said, if God is going to send me to America, then he's got to provide. If I'm going to leave this job, I'm going to go do this, he's got to provide the coal. He's got to provide the fire for this thing. And praise God he has. But another story, I'll tell you one more story about MF, and then I'll go to the message. But MF, he had an elderly lady, came to his church all the time. Her husband would never come. And she came to the church all the time, every time the doors was open. And so he's praying one night, and he hears this knock on the door. See, that's good. Right? And then he goes down to the door, and he puts on his shirt and jacket to, it's very cold out, and he opens up the door, and it's this lady's husband. And the lady's husband says, "My wife goes to your church, right?" And he says, "Yes, she does." And he says, "You believe healing is for today, right?" He says, "Yes, we do." And he said, "Well, you better come to my house. My wife is dying. She may be dead by the time we get there." And he hurries and gets ready. He starts out the door, and the Holy Spirit speaks to him and says, "Go back and get your anointing oil. Go back and get your anointing oil." So he goes back, he gets his anointing oil, and he chases the man. It was just a distance where they walked, a small town. He ran down the street to these people's house. He goes into the house, and he's trying to figure out when he can pray, because the doctor's there. That's when they used to come to your home. And the doctor's there. She's laid out on the dining room table with a sheet on her. And the doctor seems to be doing something else. He thinks, well, this is a good time for me to pray for her. So he gets his anointing oil, and he begins to anoint her, and begins to pray for her. And the doctor says, "MF, it's too late." And he says, "Well, what do you mean it's too late?" He says, "I'm filling out her death certificate. She's already gone." And he covers her face with the sheet, and he says, "I'm going to the mortician. I'm going to take him this lady back to get the body." And so he took the sheet, and he left, or took the paper, and he left. And MF pulled the sheet back from her face and anointed her throne and began to pray for her. And it kind of went south, if you know what that means. It just got worse. She started getting colder and colder, and her skin began to turn kind of an ashy gray. But he continued to pray for her. Now, see, I don't know when you would have stopped praying. When would you have said, "Oh, I must be here for the family. Maybe I could lead them all to the Lord now that mom or grandma's died. Maybe they're all here. Maybe I could lead some of them to the Lord so they could be in heaven with grandma." But he continued to pray for her because the Holy Spirit told him to anoint her with oil and pray for her, and God was going to do a great and mighty thing in their community that day. So he continued to pray for her. Pretty soon the mortician shows up, and the mortician says, "MF, I've come for her body." And he says, "Well, the Lord told me to pray for her. He was going to do a great and mighty thing in the community today." And the mortician said, "Well, it's late. Now it's 4 in the morning." He says, "It's late. I have my family. I want to take the body back and go back, home." And he says, "Well, why don't you just go and pray with talk to the family or whatever for a while. I'm going to continue to pray for her." And he continued to pray for her. And a few minutes later, she sat up, and she lived for another 10 years. And I said to Gar, "See, I need double that anointing. If I'm going to go to the United States, I need power when I pray, and I need the support of the people to and it was M.F. Brandt's son. Now, M.F. had gone to be with the Lord during that period of time, and when we got the message and everything, and his son called, and he says, can I come over, Jim? And I says, sure. What do you want, Gene? He says, I got to bring you something right now. He says, I got to bring you something right now. And I said, yeah, come right over. He came over, and he's got a box of books and stuff, and they were moving out of town, and they were going into the RV ministry, and they were leaving the next day. And I'm going through the box, and in the bottom of the box is what appeared to be lipstick. His wife's name is Artie, and I said to Gene, I said, do you think Artie wants this tube of lipstick back? And I looked up at him as I was drawing it out of the box, and tears were running down his cheek. And I said, what's wrong, Gene? He says, that's not Artie's lipstick. He says, that's my father's anointing oil. The Lord spoke to me and told me to bring it over to you tonight. And so you can see why I thought it looked like lipstick, right? So I knew that I knew. God just looked at me and says, what more do you need, Jim? And it was only a couple months later, I was on a team to reduce all the people within Campbell Soup, all the management people within Campbell Soup. And I didn't like that, to be on that kind of a team. But I think I was on it because they thought I knew all the people all over the country. And also because they knew I was a Christian, I wouldn't tell anybody about what was going on. I could keep my mouth shut. And so I was on the committee, and I turned to the vice president of manufacturing. I said, Tom, I put my own name on this list. I'm supposed to go. And so I had the privilege of downsizing myself, and off I went. God just opened doors all over the country. We've been to all 50 states. We've been to Hawaii and Alaska, from Delaware to California. We've been all over the U.S., all 50 states, and some states many times. And we just felt like that we were supposed to be here today. That's, and so we're here today. And so I'm gonna take you through the message, if I may, and we still have plenty of time, right? But anyhow, so these guys are leaders of the church, right? I mean, they give me time. But so we're going to go through this together, and Hannah is going to help me, or Britton, I don't know which one, but Hannah and Britton are going to help me with this. We're going to go through the scriptures together. Britton didn't know if I remember his name, but I figured if I remember Devin, I could remember Britton, right? So anyhow, let's go through this together. This is from 2 Kings chapter 2, as we talked about. And it came to pass when the Lord would take Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind, that Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. Now let me tell you a little bit about Gilgal. Gilgal is a place of cutting off. That's where Joshua circumcised his troop before they went into fight the battle of Jericho. You know the battle of Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came down. Pastor can sing, I can't sing. But anyhow, so they're in Gilgal. Now, for us, let me tell you something. Elijah means the Lord is my God. So we're going to take a little trek with them today. We're going to go through the desert with them. And what we're going to do is we're going to go from Gilgal to Bethel, and from Bethel to Jericho, and then Jericho back down to the Jordan where they were when they started. And Elijah means the Lord is my God. So imagine, if you will, that the Lord is my God. I'm following the Lord. Because Elisha means the Lord is my salvation. So think of yourself as Elisha, and the Lord is leading you from place to place. Now, Gilgal is a place of cutting off. That's a place where you got born again. Now, we aren't circumcised of the flesh. It says in Romans, we're no longer circumcised of the flesh, right? But we're circumcised in our hearts. And you never know whether somebody's really saved or not, except for yourself. You really, and even sometimes we question that. But it says in Romans that if you confess with your mind, you know that scripture, right? And believe in your heart. And so we're saved. But the question is, where do you go with that? And see, Elijah turns to Elisha, and he says this in the next verse. He said to Elisha, tarry here, I pray of you, for the Lord sent me to Bethel. And Elisha said unto him, as the Lord lives and your soul lives, I will not leave you. So they went down to Bethel. Now, so Elijah says you can just stay here. See, God isn't going to make you go someplace. It says, as you draw near to God, He draws near to you. He's not going to take you kicking and screaming into what He's called you to do. He's waiting for you to make that decision to follow Him. It says His Spirit goes throughout the whole earth, looking for those hearts that are sold out to Him, so He can show Himself mighty to those people. And He's looking for those people that are willing really sold out to him. And some people just stay at Gilgal. Gilgal is a place of cutting off. You know those people. If you ever been at work or talking to a family member, and you say, oh, finally I got the courage up. I'm going to share my faith with them. You share your faith with them. And they say, oh, I'm already saved. Have you ever run into that? And you say, what? And you say, yeah, at 8 years old, I went down to the altar of a little Baptist church and gave my life to Christ. And you're thinking to yourself, boy, there's no indication of that in your life. You know, they go to church on Easter, Christmas, and Mother's Day. That's about it, right? And yet, I don't know if they're saved. Only God knows if they're truly saved. I won't judge them. But if they decided to stay at Gilgal, that's where they decided to say, oh, the other one is, oh, I gave my life in a youth rally. My neighbor invited me to a youth rally, and at 17 years old, I gave my life to, but they didn't do anything with it. They just stayed there. And Elijah says to Elisha, you just stay here. If that's what you want to do with your life, you can just stay where you are, doing what you're doing. But we want more. We want more, so we go on to Bethel. So they went down to Bethel, and go to the next scripture. And all the sons of the prophet were Bethel came forth to Elisha and said to him, know you not that the Lord will take your master from your head today? And he said, yes, I know. Yes, I know it. Shut up. Is that what it says? That's what he said to him. Hold your peace. Shut up. Yes, I know. Shut up. Because you know what they were trying to do? They were trying to keep him there. Their master, what are you going to do when he's taken away from you today? What are you going to be lost out in the desert by yourself? You've been waiting on this guy, serving this guy for all these years. You're the associate pastor, and he's the head pastor, and you're just doing all this stuff that he doesn't want to do. You're washing his clothes, starting the fire, getting the rabbits, all that kind of stuff. And you're following this guy around for all these years, and they say, why don't you stay here? Now, see, here's the temptation. Is that this was a Bible college, the sons of the prophet, this was a Bible college that Elijah had planted there. And these sons of the prophet were Bible college students. And what was going on is they were in a sense saying, stay here because we look up to you. You can teach us all this stuff. You can be our professor. See, and that's what happens to us. There's things where we rationalize. See, I can rationalize, Lord, I'm going through all the United States. I've got all these people, churches are growing and everything. Surely you don't want me to leave all that and go out and do what I don't even know what I'm going to do, right? See, you can just stay at Bethel. Bethel means, you know what Bethel means? House of God. And a lot of people, they come through these doors on Sunday morning, they sit here, they listen to Pastor preach, and they go back out and live their life the rest of the week, and they're not doing what God called them to do. Now, that doesn't mean they've been called to go be a pastor somewhere or something. Maybe it has. I don't know, but maybe they're the evangelist to their neighborhood. Maybe they're just supposed to be sharing with their family the gospel, and they haven't shared the gospel with their family. What have you been called to do? See, if you don't know his voice, if you don't know his word, don't know his voice, how do you know what you're being called to do? And so, he said, I'm not staying here, I'm going with you. I'm not staying at Bethel. Many of us stay at Bethel. We're active in our churches and just leave it at that. I had a friend, he was an executive for Whitney Bowes, and at the big church we went to, and he felt like the Lord was leading him to leave his job and go into the ministry. And the way he started that is he became the head janitor of this big church. He cleaned toilets because he wanted to be close to the pastors to see what made them tick, because he could derive from that. He and his family went on to be missionaries to Haiti, and now he's the head pastor, senior pastor of the largest multicultural church in Prince of Peace, Haiti. See, and he decided to start. He heard this message and he decided to go clean toilets. See, I don't know what God has called you to do, but maybe you don't either. Because you haven't learned his voice, you haven't become sensitive, you don't know his word well enough to know what he's calling you to go do. And you're comfortable at Gilgal, you're comfortable at Bethel. Well, they went on to Jericho. He said, I'm going with you no matter what. You guys shut up. And it says in the next verse that they went on up to Jericho. And Elijah said to him, tarry here, I pray for you, the Lord sent me to Jericho. Now again, you see, Elijah said, you can just stay here. See, God, he's happy with you, he loves you, he wants a relationship with you, but he's got a plan for you if you want to go do it. He's got a plan for your life if you want to go do it. But he's happy with you right where you are. He loves you, he's forgiven all your sins, he just is in love and He's happy with where they are. But there was one guy, Elisha, that said, no, I'm not going to stay here. And they went on up to Jericho. I will not leave you as long as you live. So they came to Jericho. Now, Jericho is an interesting place. They ran into some more sons of the prophet there. And the sons of the prophet that were Jericho came to Elisha and said unto him, know you not that the Lord will take away the master from your head today? And he answered, yes, I know. Shut up. Now, one of the reasons he's saying shut up is not just to them, but he's saying shut up to himself because the temptation is to stay right where you are. The temptation is to take the easy road. The road where you don't really need to trust God. You can trust your job, your employer, and you know that can all vanish in a day. But he says, he's going to go on with him in a second. But Jericho's an interesting place. Jericho's a place of misplaced faith. And I say that, you see, they were never supposed to rebuild Jericho. In fact, the king was told by the prophet if he rebuilt there, his two sons would be killed, and they weren't. And yet he rebuilt there. And it's interesting because as a parent, what you do with your life is going to affect your children's lives. If God has called you for something and you're content to not go there and not do that, that's going to affect your children's walk with the Lord. But Jericho's a place of misplaced faith. They rebuilt there because they wanted to see the miracle of the walls come tumbling down. They wanted to see the power of God working. But God said, don't rebuild there. See, we rebuild there today because we watch Benny Hinn, we watch Billy Graham, and that's fine, don't get me wrong. But we watch these televangelists, and they're telling us all the great things they're doing, but we're not doing it, and yet we're an army, and we're all called to be participating in the war. But we look at those guys and we trust it, and I understand that because when I first got saved, I lived in an affluent neighborhood, and I didn't think any of the other guys in my neighborhood needed Jesus like I needed Jesus. So that's my call. But anyhow, no. But I said, you know, I can't share with these guys. They don't need Jesus like I need Jesus. I didn't know the conditions of their family. They hid all this stuff from me. I didn't know one that his daughter was a cheerleader. I didn't know that she was bulimic, and they were struggling with that. I didn't know another family where the husband was cheating on his wife, and he was hiding that. It came out later, and they ended up finally keeping the marriage together. But I didn't know the situations. Another one had a son that was extremely depressed, and they were struggling with all these things, but they hid them all, see? And so what I would do is I would tell them when Billy Graham was going to be on TV. See, and I think, well, if I can't get him saved, Billy Graham can get him saved, right? So I'd call him up and say, hey, watch Billy Graham, you know, tonight on TV, hoping that he would get him saved. And then I stumbled on this part in the Bible in Revelation chapter 12, where it says the enemy is defeated by the blood of the Lamb and the word of my testimony. God put me there to testify to those people, not Billy Graham. Yeah, you can use those tools. There's nothing wrong with those tools. But God calls us. He's put us where we are for our testimony for those around us. So he said, I'm not staying there either. Go on to the next verse, and he says, Elijah said to them, tarry here, you stay here, if this is where you want to stay. And he said, Lord, as the Lord lives and your soul lives, I will not leave you. And they went on, and the two of them went on. Now watch this next part, because this is where a whole bunch of people are. And the 50 men of the sons of the prophet went and stood to view far off as the two stood by the Jordan. See, there's a whole bunch of Christians today in America that are involved in the church, they're doing stuff, but they don't want to get their own feet wet. See, they're standing back where they're standing back where it's saying, I'll let pastor and the assistant pastor and those guys, I'll let those guys, those daring guys, go down to the Jordan River, but I'm staying back here because I want to see what happens. See, if something really happens, then I'll go do what they're doing. See, we stand back and we wait to see that thing that's supposed to happen. And it never happens. Because it's not for us, it's for them. Remember, Jesus went to his first miracle at Canaan, right? His mother said, they're out of wine, go back there and do something about it. I want you to just think about this for a second. Who saw the miracle? Who saw the miracle? It was the servants that took the pictures that saw the miracle. The other people just saw the wine. Some people saw the water go back, some people saw the wine there, but the guys that saw the miracle were the servants of God. In our case, it's the servants of God. It's the servants, that was the servants of Jesus that took the water back there and they saw the miracle. They saw it turn into wine. But see, when you're standing afar off, you're not going to see that. You're in that safety zone. Oh, you can hear about it. Somebody said, oh, that was water before, now it's wine. Jesus did that. But you didn't get to see it. But the servant of God gets to see it. And God has called you to do something in your life. And he says, don't forsake small beginnings. He says that if I give you a little and you do a lot with it, I'll give you more, right? But he says, if you don't do anything with it, I'll take it away from you and give it to the guy who's doing something. That's just scripture. And so they went down to the Jordan River. Go ahead, thank you. And Elijah took his mantle and wrapped it together and struck the water, and they were divided here and there, hither and thither. So they went, the two of them, on dry ground. Now, see, I like it. That's where I need my coaching. See, I like to just compare it like this. He just went out, and for years he'd been doing miracles, right? And he walks up to the Jordan River, and he hits the Jordan River, and it parts, right? Now, to me, it's like pushing that. I don't know if you guys have these in California or not, but in Nebraska, we're on the edge of things. They think we're the flyover zone, but we're way ahead on technology. And we've got this thing where you pull up to your garage, and you push the button, and the door goes up. Have you seen those before? It's incredible, really. You've seen those. Well, you probably did in California. But anyhow, I think it was just like that. You just went up there and pushed the button. And I used to hide it on my seat here, and I hide that garage door button on your seat. And I'd drive over with my grandkids, and I'd say, "Open sesame!" And I'd push the button, and they'd say, "Wow, Grandpa, how do you do that?" Well, they figured it out later. But anyhow, I think that's all he did. It's no big deal to him. He's going to be taking up that name. But Elisha, it's a whole different thing. See, for us as Christians, it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different thing. It's a whole different commitment, because what he was going to do is he was going to end up on the wrong side of the Jordan at the wrong time of night. See, if you started out at Gilgal at 4 in the morning, and you walk to Bethel, and you walk to Jericho, and you walk back down the Jordan River, the sun's going down. Now, he's going to be on the wrong side of the Jordan at the wrong time of night. Because, see, all the enemies of Israel are on the other side of the river. See, God told Israel to settle on that side, and other than Reuben and Manasseh, they were all on that other side of the river. He was going where all the people that hated him were. And in a little bit, he's going to be by himself, and it's getting dark. See, has God ever called you to do something, and it seems like it's getting darker and darker before it gets better, Pastor? It's like, what's going on? What's going on? We had a similar thing that you were talking about earlier, Pastor. In our church, we were growing it. We had all these people, oh, Pastor, we come to help you, all this kind of stuff. And you find out they didn't come to help at all. And then they finally end up leaving and taking about half the church with them. Even some of the people that you led to the Lord and baptized, you're like, how did they go with these people? And you think that's the darkest time at all. No, that's God just straightening out the house a little bit. Because what he's after here, he's after people that are really sold out. Those other people at Gilgal and Bethel and Jericho, that's fine. But he's looking for those few Elishas that are really, truly sold out to the things of God. Now, I don't know what happened at your particular church, but we've gone through this in ours. We lost about half the people, and it just shocked us. But God has brought back and added 2 people that are just amazing. Just amazing. But the one emphasis we always have over and over again is, what are you doing for the Lord? Not that he expects anything from you. This isn't a performance religion. God loves you just like you are. But if you want to really get blessed, he has things that he wants to do for you, because there's crowns in heaven. Yeah, we throw them at his feet at the marriage supper of the Lamb or the big ceremony, but there's crowns to be had. Paul looked forward to those crowns. He's setting you up to get crowns in heaven. He said, don't lay up your treasures down here. Lay them up in heaven. But oftentimes we're so earthly bound that we can go heavenly good. I once had a pastor say, I was getting real spiritual. He says, you don't get so heavenly minded that you know earthly good. And when I found out I was getting so earthly minded that I was no spiritual good. But anyhow, so he took them and they went across the great ground. Now I can just imagine Elisha. He's looking like, whoa. He's seeing the fish, this is just, I don't normally put this in the message, but I feel led to do this. Do you remember when Moses got to the Red Sea, what did he do? He lifted up the staff, right? Which many people say is the cross. He lifted up the staff. And they let the people go, right? They went across and came out on the other side. That's the first baptism. That's the first baptism. And they went through the water and came out on the other side. See, when we're born again, we were slaves before we were born again. We were slaves to the Pharaoh. And then the cross comes and we're delivered from Pharaoh's bondages. We're delivered from the devil's hold on us. And we get baptized as an outward evidence of what took place inside, right? And we get baptized as evidence that God really changed us. And then we go out in the desert. Now we can go right to the promised land and get into the battle, or we can wander around the desert our whole Christian life. And many people wander around the desert their whole Christian life. But see, there's a second baptism. Do you realize this? They went to the Jordan River, and what happened with the Jordan River? When Joshua got to the Jordan River, he said, now see, remember it was the staff that parted the water in the Red Sea. Now they have the very presence of God inside the box, right? Inside the ark. He says, go place the ark in the water. And the priest took down and they placed the ark in the water, right? And what did the water do? Did it part? It didn't part. You say, what do you mean, Pastor, it didn't part? It didn't part. It says it backed up to the city of Adam. It backed up to the city of Adam. Because see, when we have the Holy Spirit in us and we have the power of God in us, and he had the priest do it today, he says, let the elders lay hands on you and impart the Holy Spirit onto you. It's the same thing. They got down to the Jordan River. It went back to the city of Adam. And my God is not a God of trivia. He says to me that my relationship with him backs all the way up to the garden. It could have been any time, right? But it backed up to the city of Adam. My relationship, my power, my ability to do what God has called me to do, my ability to communicate with him in the garden in the evening, everything is restored. Now, I'm still living in a tent, like Paul says, and I'll get a new body. But everything's restored. Then they went in and they took the promised land. And today the promised land isn't a city. It isn't a land. Today the promised land is the people that Jesus Christ paid for when he died on the cross. And we're not going out there and telling them about it. We're supposed to be in the army. We're supposed to be fighting. We're not supposed to be standing at the river watching. But if we don't know his voice, he says, my sheep know my voice, and they come in and they go out. If we don't know his voice, then we'll go do something wrong. His first priority is know my word, know my voice, and then discover my will for your life. Otherwise, you're going to go off like a half-loaded gun, right? So they get across the Jordan River, and they get on the other side, and it came to pass when they come over, Elijah says, Elisha asked what we should do before I'll be taken away from you. Elisha said, I pray you let me have a double portion of the Spirit upon me. Give me double the portion, the Spirit that's on you. What did Jesus say to the church? He says, you'll do greater things than I did. See, we're called to do double what Jesus did. And we're not doing it, church. Because we're waiting and watching for Benny Hinn. If he prays for somebody to get out of the wheelchair, I'll go to Walmart and I'll wait in the handicap zone and I'll pray for somebody to get out of their wheelchair, right? But when he prays for somebody to get out of the wheelchair, we feel all kinds of doubt and believe, well, they probably just wanted to get up on the stage and be seen. Something I've never been able to figure out, Pastor, is when they get up on the stage at Benny Hinn, they finally got out of their wheelchair, they're walking, or they lay their crutches down, they're walking, and he prays for them, they fall over. I thought the object was to stand up. And then they stand them up again, they pray for them, they fall over again. I don't understand that part, but I'm sure. But anyhow, we're waiting for something like that to prove to us, instead of us trusting Jesus Christ, to go do what maybe he didn't call you to go to Walmart and wait there. Maybe he's called you to something different, but if you don't know his voice, and you don't know his word, you don't know his will for your life, you don't know what you're supposed to go do, and so you just go live your life like every other American lives their life and wait for whatever's going to happen. And hope it turns out okay. But we're an army. See, it's not good enough for an army to be all sitting in the barracks, eating at the mess hall. We're to have the weapons of our warfare put on and go fight the enemy. That's what we're called to do. To Satan doesn't want you to think you're in a battle. He wants to lull you into complacency. So they went on a cross. He says, I need twice what you need. And then they went on and said, he said, you've asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if you see me when I'm taken from you, it shall be so for you, but if not, it shall not be so. So he said to him, he said this, how serious are you about this? If you see me when I'm taken from you today, two things. One, will you stick it out? Because we're going darker and darker. He doesn't know when he's going to be taken out. It's getting later and later. It's getting darker and darker. He's going more and more into enemy's territory. He says, if you stick it out till the end, and see, that's us, Pastor. That's the people in your church. That's the children's church, Pastor. That's everybody in this building. Whatever God has called you to do, will you stick it out even though it doesn't seem to be coming like it's supposed to come? If you don't see it happening like you see it, like you expect it to see it happening. He says, if you don't quit, will you keep at it, keep at it, keep at it, then you're going to get the double portion. The second thing is, he says, if you see me go up today, he says, are you in a spiritual place that you see what God is doing? See, my little trip from Modesto to Pasadena, that's not exclusive to me. God's not a respecter of persons. He wants to give you that same kind of revelation of what should go on in your life. He wants to speak to you in whatever way you need to be spoken to know what you should go do. But he's looking for you to see if you're going to start out and get going, if you're going to get this ball rolling, if you're going to start doing something little. Come to the pastor and say, I'll come back into the church. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Maybe it's witness to Aunt Betty. Aunt Betty, the grouchy old aunt said, don't talk to her about religion or politics. Don't talk to her. She'll bite your head off. And so you don't talk to Aunt Betty, and you don't find out that she just found out that day that she had terminal cancer, and she would love to hear anybody to tell her how to have salvation. But see, if we've been listening to the Lord's voice instead of people's voices, we know that was the day we were supposed to go talk to her about it. So he said, if you stick with me, if you're in a spiritual relationship with the Lord, if you stick it out, then you're going to get a double portion. And it goes on to say, he was taken out and came to pass. And they still went on and talked, and behold, there appeared a chariot of fire, horses, and fire parted both of us asunder, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind in heaven. I want you to see something. I'm probably walking out of the camera here, but that's all right. What does it say? And parted them both asunder. Parted them both asunder. That means they both stepped aside. So now we have a key, and we're going to hear it in the next verse, but we have a key. See, there's all kinds of things hidden in the scriptures of God. It said they both stepped aside. See, that means he saw something. I used to travel, a guy used to go with us when we did this message, and he's gone on to be with the Lord now, but he went with us, and he said he saw angels all around me when I preached this message. But you don't see me say, excuse me. This guy's pretty big. But anyhow, I don't see those angels. He saw the angels. Elisha saw something because they both stepped aside. See how God's word has all this stuff hidden in it for you. The city of Adam. He has all these little things hidden in his scriptures for you. But you won't know them unless you study his word and get that day-to-day revelation. You get some of it from the pulpit, you get some of it from Christian radio, you get some of it from books, but you get most of it from a personal, deep personal relationship with him. Pastors, our job is to equip you for the ministry, to equip the saints for the ministry. But if you don't know what your ministry is, what do I give you? What do I equip you with? You're the one that's going to find out what you're supposed to do. I'm just supposed to help you, guide you kind of towards it. I tell my people that, you're not familiar with this, but we're in Omaha, and Lincoln, Nebraska is the capital. It's about 40 miles away from Omaha. And I said, if you're in Omaha and I'm in Lincoln, that's all the further I'm ahead of you, and we're going to Hawaii, and I have no idea what we're going to do when we get to Los Angeles. And I don't know if that makes sense to you, but the pastor is just a little bit ahead of you, usually. But you need to find out where you're supposed to go so that he can help you go that way, because he's been there himself. And he went up in a whirlwind, and then the next scripture, it says that it came down on him, and Elisha saw it and cried out, my father, the chariot of Israel, and the horsemen thereof. your religious background of each individual, and here it is. But mine was Catholic, and I saw God as this God that just was waiting up there to hammer me for something I did wrong. He's your Father. He loves you more than your own father loves you. And I don't know what your relationship with your own father was. But he loves you more than an earthly father would love you. He wants to provide for you to do what he's called you to do. And he owns a cattle on 1,000 hills. He can do anything. If you go do what he's called you to do, he will finance it. He will take care of it. He will meet your needs. What are you called to do? What are you called to do? My Father. You got to get a revelation that God is a loving Father that cares about you. Then he took his old clothes and he rent them. That means he took his old clothes off and he tore them off. Now the significance of that is to see the clothes represented who you are. The clothes represented who you are and what your job is. And he had the clothes of the associate prophet, and he was about to put on the mantle of the prophet. But he couldn't put that on until he took off the old clothes. And see, we have old clothes on. We have old clothes because I'm significant because I have a nice car. I'm significant because I have a bigger house than my parents have. I'm significant because of this. I'm significant because I have a good job. I'm significant because I got the right boots or the right purse or the right outfit. I'm significant because I go get my hair cut at the right place. See all that stuff? We're all seeking some sort of significance. But we got to be able to tear that off. You ever go to a hospital? You don't think this is going on today. Go into the hospital and you can walk down the aisle and you can tell who's the doctor, right? Because they got their name on the white coat. All the flunkies, they don't get their name on the coat, right? And they don't need a stethoscope anymore because they have all these machinery to tell your heartbeat, but they still wear their shiny black and chrome stethoscope around their neck. And you know if they're a surgeon because they got the little green booties on and the little hat. See, everybody's marked out, and they were marked out then. But in order for him to do that, he had to say, I'm willing to take off who I am. Lord, I'm willing to end my career that I've worked all my life for, and all the success that I've had, that I got from you. But I'm willing to take that off for you, Lord. Because I can't put on the mantle of Jesus Christ until I remove the mantle of Jim Nielsen. You understand? So he took the mantle and fell and he went back to the Jordan River. I like this. Remember the garage opener? I know it's new technology. You guys will get it. But remember the garage opener? And Elijah did one of these and went on across. No big deal. But that's not what it says about Elisha. It says he went back and he took the mantle of Elisha, fell from him, and he stroked the waters, and he said, where is the Lord God of Elisha? And when he also had smitten the water, that parted here and there, and Elisha went down. He actually hit it twice. You see that? He struck it, and then he struck it again. And you know what he said? When he struck it, he said, where is the Lord God of Elijah? And I want to ask you today, when will the church take that mantle that God has put on us through Jesus Christ and say, now I want to see the Lord God of Elijah. I want to see the Lord Jesus Christ. I want to see Jesus Christ operating in the church today. I want to see people healed. I want to see people delivered. I want to see something different going on. He's waiting for you, church, to say, now I'm ready to see something happen. I'm ready to see these things happen. We're a Pentecostal church. We're supposed to see people healed. We're supposed to see coal. We're supposed to see people come back to life. We're supposed to see people delivered and healed. I did something to my back about a couple weeks ago, and it hurt so bad I couldn't even walk, right? Ethan can tell you, I've been just walking around terrible. And my wife said, don't worry, the Lord will take care of it when you go to preach. And yesterday, suddenly all pain went away. I've had it for several weeks. And yesterday, his father prayed for me. My daughter and his father are worship leaders in a big church. And he just prayed for me, and I was healed. It was about 4 hours later. And it went away. I was taking ibuprofen, and I was putting icing on, I got a heating pad, the whole thing wouldn't go away. But God healed me. But that is not the greatest healing. When we went into the ministry, I had something stent in me, and a month later that stent failed. I went back in, and they came from a different angle through a different artery. They put another stent in. A month later, that stent failed. All this time, I'm witnessing to this pastor, or to this doctor, this cardiologist about it, Jesus Christ, and he says, now we got to do bypass surgery. So they took me in and they did bypass surgery, double bypass surgery. And that was fine for about 4 years. But see, when I first came out of the bypass surgery, I said, I feel terrible. I felt better when I had the stents. I feel weak and tired. And they said, oh, it'll take a couple weeks. A couple weeks go by. I said, I'm still weak and tired. He says, well, come in my office. I do an ultrasound. He did an ultrasound. And he did an ultrasound of my heart. And he said, I got some bad news for you, Jim. And I said, what's that? He said, when they did the bypass, he didn't do it. A different doctor did it. But he said, when they did the bypass surgery, they cut a nerve to your heart, and a quarter of your heart isn't pumping anymore. It's just sitting there dormant. He says, it's not dead, but it's useless. And right then, I said, well, what do you do about it, doctor? Because you're a bypass, stent to bypass. What do we do next? And he said, there's nothing. Those nerves are microscopic. There's no way to fix that. He says, I've never seen anybody ever recover from this ever before. He says, I'm going to give you a bunch of medication that'll keep your energy levels higher, and I'll give you stuff to try and keep you going. But he says, you're not going to live too many years. I said, well, okay. And then the Holy Spirit spoke to me. He said, that's not true. And I turned to the doctor. I said, that's not true. He said, why? I said, that's not true. I said, the Holy Spirit just spoke to me and told me that's not true. He says, whatever, but here's the prescriptions. 4 years later, the angina came back. And all this time I'm weak and I'm tired. 4 years later, the angina comes back. And I go into his clinic, and now he can do it right in his office. So I'm in the clinic, and he goes down and he checks. He says, Jim, I got some good news and bad news. And I said, well, give me the good news first. And he said, well, the good news is, remember that part of your heart that the Holy Spirit told you that it would work again? He says, it's working. And I said, praise God, what's the bad news? He said, well, the bad news is your bypass has collapsed, and both the stents are worse than they ever were. He says, you gotta go to the hospital right away. We're gonna get an ambulance and take you to the hospital. I said, no, I'm not going. I said, give me a few days. I said, I'm gonna go be anointed by a leader in my church. I said, if this is true, if this is real stuff, then I want to do it God's way. He says, okay, I'm not responsible for you from now. And he says, get an appointment when I can get you into surgery next. And I went out to his nurse, and he said, this was on a Wednesday. I went out to his nurse, and he said, next Tuesday we can do this. So we scheduled for next Tuesday. And I went on Saturday, and I had this man that had been healed of heart disease before. He anointed me with the oil and prayed for me. And I went on Tuesday and laying on the table, and he can be awake if you want to. And he's going up there with his cable to see what he's going to do. He didn't even know what he was going to do. He said if it was too bad, he was going to have to do another bypass. And he got up there and he says, Jim, I'm pulling out. And I said, Doc, why are you pulling out? And he says, it appears you received a healing from the Lord. That was on the surgery. And that was 10 years ago, and I'm on no medication whatsoever at all. See, God wants to do that stuff today. He wants to do that stuff, and if you're serious about it, he'll do it. My wife was teaching children's church, and in the middle of church, the devil attacked her. A witch came in that day to our church, and I asked him what he was doing. He's a warlock, and he says, you'll know in 20 minutes. And then he cursed the church and walked out. And 20 minutes later, my wife fell to the floor with a totally paralyzing stroke. She couldn't walk, she couldn't talk, she couldn't do anything. I had to pick her up, me and some men in the car, where our church is, a rural church, is too far from the hospital for an ambulance to come. So, they will eventually come, but it'll take too long. So we loaded her up in the car, and she was just foaming at the mouth, drooling, she couldn't move. She couldn't talk to you. And we ran her to the hospital. We took her to the hospital, and they said she had a completely disabling stroke, and that she'd never walk again, never talk again, never feed herself again, and she'd be a vegetable the rest of her life. And I said, I need to do something. And they said, what? And I said, I need to anoint her with oil and pray for her. And they kind of chuckled and said, okay, do whatever you want to do. And I prayed for her, and she began moving her right hand. And it was a process of about 4 years, but through physical therapy and everything, she began to walk again, she began to talk again, she began to feed if she was here, you'd say, oh my gosh, I didn't even know anything ever happened to her. So, anyhow, I tell you all that just to tell you that God is still in that business. We've had people in our church healed of cancer. We've seen miracles of God, just incredible miracles of God. And God's a good God. And so he wants to do that stuff again. Because, see, the world is natural. And if the church tries to operate in the natural, then it's just all based on how effective we are in the natural realm. But we're not natural, we're supernatural. I tell the people in the city, tell them to come to our church, they can see aliens. Everybody's always looking for aliens, they see aliens. Because it says in Peter, doesn't it say that we're aliens in Peter? Yeah, we're aliens. You want some aliens? Come to church. Because we're supernatural beings. But see, the enemy wants to keep us at a natural level. He doesn't want you to recognize that you're a supernatural being, because then you get on the armor and you go to war, and he's in trouble because he can't win. Because he's defeated. Now show me where your sting is, right? So I'm just telling you this. But we're going to play that song in a minute. Hannah's going to put it on. And we're going to play that song. I want you to listen to the words, but don't listen to the whole song. I want you to listen to the words, and I want you to come up. And I want you to take the elements, the communion elements. Don't wait for a corporate communion. I want you to find a place. This is an intimate thing. This is between you and Jesus. This isn't a corporate thing. I want you to take the elements. I want you to take the bread. I want you to take the cup. You see, Jesus said, do this in remembrance of me. You know why he did that? He wants you to remember how much he loves you, that he would give himself over. It's not a guilt thing. Do this to remember how much I love you, that I would give my body and my blood for you. And take that and remember what he paid to be in an intimate relationship with you. And take the bread and take the cup on your own when you feel like the Holy Spirit's leading you. But do that in committing to the Lord. I commit to you, Lord, that I'm making this commitment to you, Father, that I'm going to begin to search your word. I'm going to begin to seek your voice. And I want to do the will that you have planned for my life. So, I have some cards I'll put up here, Pastor, that I don't need your information.